Hello and welcome to my presentation on fatigue and recovery. In this presentation I'll talk about why we fatigue and how we recover. Fatigue is basically the exhaustion of muscles from prolonged exertion. It will occur for many different reasons depending on the intensity or duration of the activity, and it could be because of things such as the depletion of creatine, phosphate or glycogen, or increase of lactic acid. Fatigue is content specific and can cause physical changes during exercise, such as the reduction of force or power that is produced. This could then lead to us being unable to produce the force that is needed and therefore failing the task. Athletes will train to delay the point of fatigue during activity. There are four main types of fatigue that I'll be talking about. First type is local fatigue. This is constant repeated contractions without enough recovery time in between. The second type is general. This is your typical type of fatigue where it's after a training session or a game. It's where you feel physically weak. Third type is chronic. This is when you feel weak as a result of overtraining without enough recovery time to help your body recover from the training. The fourth type is psychologically. This is when you think that you can't do any more training than you can do. Athletes will train to delay the effect of fatigue so they can perform at a higher level and intensity for longer. The first type of fatigue is during high intensity and low duration exercise. This will be for events such as 100 meters or events like shot put. These events will use the ATP-PC system and will recruit fast glycolytic muscle fibers. This is because they can produce a maximal force. However, they are low fatigue resistant and can't last for a long time. Fatigue will occur in this sort of activity due to a depletion in phosphate and creatine. As a result of using this system, there are no waste products produced, and it's an anaerobic system where ATP and phosphate are the two main fuels. Fatigue will be caused because of the depletion of ATP and PC. This has a negative effect on performance because there isn't enough available fuel in the muscles that is needed. This means that muscles aren't able to contract with as much force or power as they normally can. It will cause fatigue as there is less phosphocreatine to help resynthesize ATP, which is the main fuel used for muscular contraction in this system. As Cassia et al. 1996 said, after maximal exercise, the PC stores are almost completely depleted. As you can see in this table at the bottom, before maximal exercise, there is 79.3 moles of PC. However, after activity, there is only 5 left. This shows that the store has gone from fully saturated to almost none left in the store, which will suggest why we fatigue. However, there are strategies to help with this. The first strategy is taking creatine supplements. This will increase the original levels of creatine in the body, and it will also enable athletes to work for longer and produce more power. As this graph shows at the bottom, from Cassia et al. 1996. Before, the people who didn't take creatine supplements, the striped group, the total work was around 275. However, the group that did take creatine supplements, their original total work was much higher at around 285. You can then see this at the second bout, where the group that didn't take creatine supplements, they still had a low amount of creatine in the body, and they couldn't produce as much power compared to the group that did take creatine supplements. However, one negative is that fatigue will still occur even with the supplements. So, although more power can be produced, fatigue will still occur at some point during the activity, but it won't happen as fast as the group that didn't, as if you didn't take creatine supplements. The second strategy is rest and recovery time. This will allow the PC stores to increase back to normal, and therefore ATP is now able to be resynthesized. 50% of PC stores are replenished after 30 seconds of rest, and as you can see in this graph, the rest levels are around 3.1, and then they will decrease to around 1 during exercise. However, during recovery time, also known as the rest time, it will then increase quite quickly back up to resting levels, which it will totally be replenished around 300 seconds after exercise has occurred. As I said before, the effect of this type of fatigue will be negative on performance, as the muscles aren't able to contract with as much force or power as they would be able to before the event. Fatigue will also occur during moderate intensity and medium duration. This is events such as a 400 meters race. They will recruit fast glycolytic muscle fibers and also fast oxidative muscle fibers. These have a fast reaction time. At the same time, moderate and high forces are produced by using these. The main energy system that is used is the glycolytic system. However, the ATP-PC system will also be used at the start of the event. Glycogen is the main energy store that is used during this. Lactic acid is a byproduct of using the glycolytic system. This will cause fatigue, as you will see later. This event will also have an RER of around 0.9. It mainly uses the anaerobic glycolytic system. This is a system where glycogen is converted down to pyruvate after chemical reactions. Because it is anaerobic, there is no oxygen involved, and when there's no oxygen involved, it can't enter into the Krebs cycle. This means it will be converted to lactic acid. This is a negative byproduct as it inhibits the enzyme GPP, which helps convert glycogen down to glucose. Glucose and glycogen depletion. This means there is less available store in the body that can be converted to ATP. When there's less ATP, the muscles aren't able to contract with as much force and power. This can lead to failing to complete the task. During moderate intensity and medium duration, which is around 60% to 50% of your maximal exercise, you'll have an RER of around 0.8 to 0.9. This is because there's a mixture of both fats and carbohydrates being used as the main energy store. They both will contribute equally to this. One waste product of using this system is lactic acid. Lactic acid will cause fatigue, as lactic acid will inhibit the enzyme that converts glucose to glycogen, GPP, as I said earlier. This will prevent the production of ATP, so lactic acid system can't work, and it will decrease the total net gain of ATP being produced in the muscles, and therefore the muscles can't contract with as much force or as often. After the lactic threshold, you will start to fatigue. The lactic threshold, as you can see in this graph, is where lactic acid starts to build up, which suggests they're working anaerobically. Another waste product is H+ ions and acidiosis. This will increase the acidity of the blood. It will occur because of lactic acid or the increase of H+ ions. It can also interact with the electrical signals in the muscles. This will slow down the muscle contraction at the same time, and it will affect the nerve impulses. One strategy is soda loading. This is where you will be drinking sodium bicarbonate minutes before an event. This will improve the buffering capacity, and it will weaken the effect of lactic acid by absorbing lactate and forming carbonic acid. This method will decrease the acidity of the muscles, so they can continue to perform at a higher intensity and produce more power during contractions for longer. As this graph shows, when people increase their bicarb intake, can increase the duration that they can take part in. As you can see, pre-training, they were both able to perform for around 400 seconds. However, The group that took bicarb post-training were then able to perform for 1,300, compared to the placebo group, who could only perform for around 1,000. This could be the difference in a crucial event. Once the bicarb is taken before the exercise, the athlete's blood will have a pH of greater than 7. This is because the sodium bicarbonate will make it less acidic and more alkaline. This will improve performance in events lasting between 1 to 10 minutes. However, there are side effects, as it can cause vomiting and diarrhea if it hasn't been tried before. During moderate intensity and medium duration athletes, the athlete will fatigue. This fatigue will cause slower and less powerful contractions of the fast glycolytic and fast oxidative glycolytic muscle fibers. This will cause them to slow down, and eventually they can't continue, as they don't have the fuel available in the muscles to keep going. As I mentioned previously, glucose and glycogen will also be depleting at this time. One strategy to cope with that is by increasing the glucose ingestion. This will increase the overall levels of glucose and glycogen in the body, which means the athlete can last for longer and they won't, as they would say, hit the wall and won't be able to continue anymore. This will help increase the duration and intensity that they can perform at the same time.